Hello, this is me, Rosa. I am here with another video, and this time of a girl with a tomato. Previously I drew her in pencil, but today I am drawing her with digital art. I chose this medium because I wanted to compare and contrast different art forms, and this is a colorful composition of her. So I just wanted to share this. So I really start mapping out everything by looking at a reference photo to get an understanding of where the proportions are on the face and the hands and everything. This just really helps so that later when I do the line art, I can go over it with a black ink and get a crisp look. Drawing the hands is kind of challenging because, well, hands is really hard to draw. It's easy to think about in shapes, like the palms of the hands are like triangles and the fingers are like cylinders. So once you get down the rest of like the arms and everything, that's just more cylinders. I know that's a challenge for a lot of people. Maybe I can do another video on how to draw hands later. But now I'm just getting down the eyes. I guess I noticed that the eyes were off in some way. They're very almond shaped, and so I'm just getting that down here before I move on to the line art. Later, I had to use the liquify tool because I realized that the head was a little too narrow, and well, you really have to make space for the brain. I guess the canvas that I was drawing on was just narrower, so it was easier for me to draw it in a narrow fashion. But now I'm going over with line art using like black pencil with my own brush that I made. Drawing in the corners of the mouth to help me better understand where the lips are, and the chin in correlation to the tomato, and drawing the cheeks, the roundness of the softness in her youthful cheeks, and just going over everything. You don't have to do line art. I know that in our community a lot of people like to say that drawing without line art is like a test of how advanced you are, and I guess it is really cool drawing without line art, but that's so complicated. This is just the beginner's tutorial, helping you better understand how to draw with line art. So yeah. Everyone approaches drawing the eyebrows differently. For example, some people like to map out the hair with their line art, or they just leave it for later to use a specific brush for hair. I think here I'm just using the line art and then I go back over it later with a brush, but a simple brush. I don't even think I use a specific brush for drawing hair, to be honest. Later on, I guess you can see how the highlights in my hair could have been better. I'm really a perfectionist and I'm really hard on myself, so don't mind me. I'm just drawing. You can draw with me if you want to. I really want to get a better setup. Like, my desk is a little crowded right now, but hopefully I can like do something better so you don't see my background the way it is right now with my laptop. I'm really just looking at a reference photo with my laptop in front of me as I'm following the guidelines and really studying the subject to better understand where everything is. A very easy way of knowing how to choose the base color for skin is by identifying the undertones. This girl's Asian, so you could go into the orange palette and like go over to the wider saturation. And here I'm just going over everything with a base color, making everything as simple as can be. In digital art, it's just easier to go over things in layers, so then you can go back over everything with shading and with blush as you want to. I guess that's what makes it more hard when approaching digital art, because you can't really do that in traditional art. For example, like in digital art, you're like stacking information on top of each other over each layer, and so then you have to think differently in terms of where each stack goes. I don't know if I explain myself, but traditional art, you're kind of like free to just pick up wherever you left off, but you can't delete your mistakes as easier as with digital art. So I guess each form has its skill, and it all takes patience, really. Right now I'm going over her blush. I decided to do everything with red first off, because I don't know, I was thinking about her blush and how everything is red in this point, and it was just easier for me to tackle at once. And then once I'm done with the blush here, I go over with the shading and the contours of her cheeks, as you'll see later. I start by shading her jawline, really thinking about the shadows under her neck and how that goes in relation to the tomato in her hand, because the light is coming in from the right side of her face. There's more shadow to the left. And now I'm drawing her eyes, and I'm using like a gray blue shading for the balls of her eyes. I'm not doing anything really detailed. I know that there's other artists on here that have like super talented brushes to define the irises of the eyes, and that's really cool. But her eyes are like black and pearlescent kind of, so I just go around the eyes and accentuate the shine of her iris with black on the inner and outer corners to later add the sparkle in her eye. And I think her eyes are really beautiful, so I'm really just going like in and out, as you can see, like this. Now I am drawing her hair, and this is a little difficult for me because in the reference photo there is really no details to clearly follow. It's just black, and so I'm just following the shape of her hair and then later understanding where the highlights could be. They're kind of like in the mid-tones of her hair where the light would reflect off of. So I'm just drawing it out first. And then as I study the reference photo, I judge where the highlights could go. Taking away some flyaways. Now I'm putting the highlights in her hair. It's kind of like a reflection. With smaller strokes on the outside and like larger strokes like in the middle. Less is more, really. Now I'm just going over some of the details in the corner of her eyes. Really just sharpening up the lines. And I'm just observing my photo, my drawing, thinking maybe there's a little bit more that I can do to this. I really am a perfectionist. At this point, I'm thinking about the rendering and any final details that might need to be done to the picture. I realized that this video isn't really funny like my first few ones, and I don't know, I guess today I'm just not really in a funny mood. This is more like a mellow video of me going over another subject that I already did. I did the girl with the tomato and pencil, and so this is me just coloring it in. And I don't know, I think digital art is fun for some things. I don't ever really think I would use it to replace traditional art. Maybe use it as a study. Personally, I'm really open to exploring lots of different types of art medium. I'm sure there's lots of things out there that I still don't know about. Like, I love alcohol markers, but I just learned about acrylic markers, and I really want to get into that too. But now I'm going over the shadows in her chest and in her clavicles, really defining the contrast in her chest. This seems complicated, I'm sure. If you were to understand lighting, you would be able to know that the light source is coming from the right. And so you would put shadows in those places that are opposite to the light source. Now I'm just shading on her arms and hands and adding more details in the clavicles. Finally, I'm shading the tomato. I started with red, and then I added a more deeper saturated red to the shaded areas. And then to add the highlights, I put some white in the most rounded parts where the light would hit. And then I started to draw the leaves to give dimension is really not that detailed. I didn't want to be so detailed with this drawing because I did it in pencil. It's just to show its form and choosing the colors to bring to life the green and the yellows in the leaves of the tomato, as you can see here. The drawing is almost done. I just have to add some final details. I'm really thinking about what I have to do next. I'm pretty sure I'm just going to give definition to the wrinkles in her shirt. But before that, I'm adding the highlights to the blush in her cheeks and in her nose. Now I'm just adding the final touches. I'm drawing her eyelashes. This is a stylized look. I learned stylized digital art, so it's not like super realistic. I can do both, but I'm really just feeling out the eyelashes, using it as adornment to add detail to her eyes. Now this video is coming to an end, and I am so happy to do this rendition of the girl with the tomato that I did with pencil, and I enjoyed the colors and it was really fun. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in another video.